Good morning and welcome to another RRC class, Rose Red Homestead class. This is our third class and we are having so much fun doing these classes. We're getting a lot of positive feedback from those of you that are attending our classes, and that just thrills us. Jim and I are both retired university professors and we love teaching. And so to have you liking our classes and responding as positively as you have just thrills us. So thank you, thank you, thank you. A word about this whiteboard. Even in a classroom, a whiteboard is bad about reflecting light sources. And of course, our kitchen is our studio and we have lights set up which reflect off of the whiteboard. Some of you have commented that the reflections make it difficult for you to see the board. So Jim has worked really hard. He's set up lights and is trying to avoid those reflections. Also, there were some comments that the green writing on one of the videos that we have recently done on leveling up our food storage was very difficult to see. Now, for our classes, I always, so far always, have a worksheet or a handout for you to download and print out so that you have it available. Just like in a university classroom, taking notes is really a good idea. The format for these classes is different than our other videos. The format is longer. We'll take 45 minutes to an hour to do a class, and there's lots and lots of information. We try to discuss things. We then try to demonstrate and show things so that you're just not sitting down taking notes throughout the whole thing. There will be things for us to do, and this class will be no exception. For this class in particular, for you to have downloaded and printed out, there are 2 pages of the handout for this lesson. And it's pretty critical that you have that in front of you. For the other 2 classes, I took pictures of the whiteboard and published those as a handout. This one, I'm not going to do that because most of the information that is on the whiteboard is on these 2 pages that you can download and print. So if you haven't done that yet, you might want to pause the video, go to our website, and here it is right here. Here's the address for you to go to the website, and then you scroll on the first page that comes up. Scroll to the bottom and it will say something like RRH class downloads or worksheets or something. And there are 3 published. And the 3rd one is the one that says basic menu planning, and that's the one that you will download and print. So today we're going to be talking about basic menu planning. This class was in high demand when we requested what you would like us to present classes on. I have been doing a lot of homework, getting ready. As a professor, I always made lesson plans, even though I was very, very experienced, because my time together with my students was very precious, and I wanted to be sure that it was used as efficiently and effectively as possible. And so that's carrying over also into these classes as well. So in my research across a lot of sites and information about meal planning, I can tell you that there is a strategy for doing meal planning for almost every different place that I visited. And one of the things that I am always really strong about is what I am looking for is the big ideas, the principles and things that guide whatever it is that we are talking about. And so I would like to reassure all of you that this is not going to be a follow exactly what I do kind of a class. What is going to happen in this class is we're going to talk about principles of menu planning. We're going to talk about the steps, but in terms of how you will implement that on your own, it's just wide open. There is not one single right way how to do meal planning. If you learn the principles and have knowledge about what is expected in meal planning, then you can implement it in a number of ways and be completely successful. One of the sites that I visited said, just understand that meal planning is not having a big binder with a month's worth of meals in it. Well, I'm sorry. I beg to differ with that. My sister Cindy, who is one of the most organized people I have ever known, and she and I co-authored our big food storage book. That's exactly how she does meal planning, and she's an expert at it. And so don't buy into anybody telling you that there's a wrong way how to do it. We're going to learn the principles and the steps, and then we're going to do it. And then you'll be able to start practicing in ways that are comfortable to you. So first of all, we're going to talk about why plan in the first place. I just recently retired as an associate provost at a regional university right here locally, about 40 miles away. My boss, who was the provost, very high up person, very intelligent, wonderful man, was the cook in his family. They had twin boys that were older teenagers, and he did all of the cooking. And every night, he would leave the office and drive to a high-end grocery store, walk around the store, decide what it was he was going to have for dinner that night, buy the ingredients, and go home and cook. Now, that's one way that you can do lesson planning. But let's go through our why list and see if that is the best way. I used to tease him about that a lot because I'm just the opposite. And so from my perspective, the number one reason for planning ahead with your meals has to do with the economy that is involved. It is economical in terms of money, that's a dollar sign, and in terms of time, that's supposed to be like a watch face. Money and time. You will save money, you will save time. And I'll probably link back to that economy of meal planning several times during today's lesson as we talk about it. It is a wonderful thing to be able to save both money and time by implementing a meal planning process in your household. Second is it avoids stress. Now, I don't know how my boss managed that every single day, because there have been times in my life, I raised a large family. I raised 6 children. There were 8 in our household for a long time. And if I went off to school to do my teaching or whatever it was that I was doing without knowing what I was going to fix for dinner, I was preoccupied all day long in the back of my head. Oh, what am I going to fix for supper tonight? What am I going to fix? Do I have to stop at the store? Let me see. Do I have this? Do I have that? I better buy it just in case. It would just stress me in the background all day long, trying to figure that out. So to alleviate stress, to avoid stress completely, we can implement meal planning in our families and have at least that source of stress booted out of our lives. And then it will improve nutrition. By planning meals and following the principles that we're going to get to in just a moment, the nutrition for our families is going to improve because you will be more mindful of it. And there's far less waste. As Americans, we waste a tremendous amount of food. In the elementary schools where I worked as a teacher during the first half of my career, I was a K-12 teacher before I became a professor. The food that was wasted after school lunch every single day filled up garbage cans, many garbage cans full of wasted food. And it broke my heart to see that much waste. Well, when we plan and then work our plan, there is a whole lot less waste. And then the really fun thing is we will develop new skills. We'll work on our time management. We will work on culinary skills. We will learn new ways of cooking and preparing food. We will even learn more about foods themselves. And so there are a lot of really good reasons why basic menu planning is very advantageous for all of us. So let's just jump right into the main content. Now, on your handout, the whys are not included. So if these are important to you, you may want to jot these down. But everything else we do is going to be covered at least partially on the handout that you downloaded and printed out. When we think about menu planning, it is nice to organize what we do around certain principles that will inform what we do. Principles guide us so that it's like they set a pathway for us, so that if we stay on that pathway, we're going to be very successful in doing meal planning. The first principle is balance. If you are as old as I am, and not very many of you out there are as old as I am, you will recall that in our country, there have been many iterations of food groups. Do you remember the food group pyramid? The food pyramid, foundational, and then all of the steps. It used to be either 7 or 9 food groups. Well, that number of food groups has changed, and it's been reiterated and redesigned and other information. Foods haven't changed that much. It's just how we organize them that has changed according to more information and more knowledge that has been added to the field of nutrition. So right now, the current model for the food groups is that there are 5 food groups. And the U.S. Department of Agriculture has a really cool website that I think you might enjoy. And it is myplate.gov. And on your handout, right up here is a QR code. If you will aim your camera, don't do it now, later, aim your camera right here, it will take you directly to this website, and it will introduce you to the plate diagram for providing balance in your meals. And so here is the plate diagram. It's just a picture of a plate divided into 4 sections: fruits, grains, vegetables, protein, and then dairy. It is so simple. I actually really like this diagram, and we're going to see how well my menu plans adhere to this a little bit later in this lesson. So if you look at carefully, there's more green and more orange than there is red and purple. More vegetables, more grains than fruits and protein, and then with dairy over here. So if we can keep this in the back of our mind, and on the website, you can just click on any one of these and it will take you to more information of that particular food group, give you examples, things that you can do with them, how much you should consume per day of those different things. But this is a good visual for having our plates look like this with every meal. Second is nutrition. Now, in some of our other videos, we have talked a lot about nutrition, macronutrients, micronutrients, and what nutrient density is. We have just published a book on nutrient-dense meals that has a whole set of recipes on nutrition using the 3 macronutrients in particular. Now, the 3 macronutrients are fats, carbs, and protein. It's not just any fats, any carbs, or any protein. Rather, it is healthy fats, complex carbs, and lean protein. And if we have those foods that are high nutrient density, what that means is that they have a lot of nutrition with low calories. That's what nutrient density is. High nutrition, low calories. And so those are the foods that we want to build into our balance as we go forward. The third principle is variety. And this is variety in the foods that you are serving your family. You know, the old saying, variety is the spice of life. Well, I think it was developed within meal planning, because you don't want the same thing every single day for every single meal. I grew up, and I've shared this before, in a very large family of 9 children. My dad was a university professor, and they didn't make a whole lot of money. We were always having to budget, and we learned a lot of skills, which I am so thankful for. But we had cracked wheat cereal every morning of the world.
Every morning of the week?
Every morning of the world. We had cracked wheat cereal with honey and milk, with sugar and milk, sometimes with raisins, sometimes with a few slices of bananas. But over and over and over again. Sometimes I just skipped breakfast. I mean, I liked it just fine, but it was so tedious. So we don't want to really do that to our families. I still like cracked wheat cereal. It's not a thing that I hate it because it was that part of my childhood. There was a lot of nutrition in that, and we survived just fine. But shake it up a little bit. Don't have peas as your vegetable for every meal. And then the last one is flexibility. And this one is so important. And so what I have on your notes is, for flexibility, scrap the meal plan and eat cake. And that is just what I mean by that is life happens. And if you have to deviate from your plan for any reason, don't give yourself a hard time about it, embrace it. And so if you want to use next Tuesday's plan instead of tonight's plan, do it.
Yeah, pizza.
Pizza. Okay, so
Ice cream.
it is fine to be very flexible in your approach to meal planning. Plan, but be flexible. All right, so keep these principles in mind, and we will revisit these as we do some analysis of some menu plans. So here are the steps. And this is where the action happens for the whole menu planning process, right here in these steps. But they are within the matrix of these principles. And so think of it as a tapestry that we are weaving, and the principles are the threads that run through everything. So with our planning, and we're going to talk about this, and then we're going to actually look at some plans to see how it is implemented. So on your handout, on the steps, number 1 is plan. This is foundational to everything else in this plan, in the steps. And that is, there are 5 things that I have listed. There probably are a whole lot more, but these are, I think, the most important 5, and you can add anything else in that you want to. So the first thing that we need to do is to know what our family preferences are and what any dietary constraints there may be in the family. Is there someone in the family with health constraints? Is there a diabetic or other situation where a dietitian has been involved in helping develop meals for that person? Do you have an infant? Are there older people in your home that require special diets? So we have to take into consideration all these things. In our family, Jim hates kale. And so I would never have a kale salad. And I know, we've been preached to a lot by our viewers who are trying to convince us that, well, you can disguise it, you can dry it and powder it, you can put it here, you can put it there. Well, I'll tell you where I'd like to put it. That's right in the garbage can. I don't like it either. And so you will never find me doing any meal planning with kale. But there are plenty of other leafy green vegetables that have almost the same nutrition. We love spinach, and that's a close second to kale. And anything that I miss out by having spinach instead of kale, I'll pick up with other foods. So I'm not worried about it. So those are the kinds of things that you need to keep in mind as you plan. What is it that your family will eat? And then on a variety, start introducing new foods to your family that have high nutrition. Then the next part of plan is to know what you have on hand. What is in your refrigerator right now? What is in your pantry? What is in your freezer? Well, up until about a month ago, our freezer was a disaster. And if I needed some chicken breasts for a meal, I would say to Jim, do we have any chicken breasts out there? And he would say, I don't know, I'll go look. And he'd be gone for a while he dug through everything in the freezer.
A couple of days.
He was gone a couple of days. So we have made it over this past month, and our target is by Thanksgiving, we are going to have our freezer very well organized. And I can't tell you how much fun we're having doing that. And already it has made a tremendous difference in my meal planning because we now know more what is out there. But knowing what you have on hand is really important as you start the actual planning process. Then you're going to plan your meals. So are you going to do a 3-day meal plan? Are you going to do a 1-week meal plan? The most common is probably a 1-week meal plan. One of the places that I visited said, do it on Friday, and then you can spend all day Saturday cooking and getting ready for the week. Raise your hand if you want to spend all day Saturday cooking. Not it, not me. And so dictating to you when you need to do your meal planning and how many days you need to do your meal planning for is simply not part of this class. Those are your decisions. And so for however much of a time span you want to plan your meals, do it. If you're brand new to meal planning, start with just a few days, 2 or 3 days, and then sort of get used to it by sticking your toe in the water and doing a little bit at a time. Do what is comfortable to you. My sister Cindy, she does a month at a time. No, she has a full year of meals planned, and actually so do I, and it's all, our plan is in that book. It is our food storage book. Actually, in that book, we have developed 2 weeks worth of meals, and then you repeat that 2 weeks for 26 times, and that gives you a year's worth of meals. So planning for 2 weeks is a fairly easy thing, and then you can just repeat that. And right now, with our Rose Red viewers, we are doing leveling up your food storage, and level 1 is immediate. And we are focusing on getting 60 days worth of meals with integrating what's in your freezer, pantry, and refrigerator. And I'm actually working on a book on that right now too. So the whole thing comes down to knowing what you already have on hand. And that's really important. And so then planning your meals and calendaring them. So when I do it, I just list things by main dish, and then I flesh that out. Well, we do everything from scratch, most everything from scratch. That's not how everybody does it. It may not be the way you want it. In your planning, if you want to plan a night out at a fast food restaurant, that's great. Jim and I both have members of our family on both sides who focus on fast food every night, stopping at a fast food restaurant, grabbing enough for dinner that night and coming home, and that's what the family eats, which both of us just shake our heads. So don't do that. But you want to do fast food one night, work it into your meal plan. You want to buy a frozen lasagna that you can thaw and then stick in your oven, do that. Just work it into your plan. Do you want to subscribe to a meal service that delivers meals to your door, that all you have to do is open them up, the ingredients are all there, the recipe card is there, and you follow the recipe and have a fresh meal? Do it. But plan so that you know exactly what the source of your meals is going to be, and then have everything on hand that you need to put things together. And then you decide which days you want which meals. And I'll show you how I do it, which is just one example of how it can be done. Then once you have identified all of your meals and pull out your recipes, have your recipes available, and if you don't have them committed to memory, many of us use the same meals and we can just do them automatically. But if you need to consult a recipe, do that. And then you list all of the ingredients you need, all that are required for the meal. Don't think about anything else. What do I need for this meal? I'm going to write it down. And then from that list, you look at the list of ingredients for your meals and you move over what you need to buy at the store. You make your grocery list by pulling. No, I don't need that because I have that in my freezer. No, I don't need that. I have some fresh of that in my refrigerator. Oops, I don't have any of that on hand. I'm moving it over to the grocery shopping list. So that is the plan part. Now we get to the prepare part, and this is where you can really start building and working right into the economy and avoiding stress of how you are doing things. So you need to decide what the source, what your cooking is going to look like on every single day for your meals. Are you going to do small batch cooking, where you just cook the stuff that you need for that meal? Or are you going to do large batch cooking? So if it's taco night, you're fixing the meat, double the recipe. Have part for your family tonight, and then you have you've big batched it, so you have a whole nother day's worth of meals. What are you going to do with this meat? So put it in your freezer. And so that's part of the economy of meal planning, is when you're set up to do something, do it double, do it triple, and then use your freezer. There are a lot of things in this prepare step that you can buy pre-done in the store, or you can make up your own packets, and we'll get to that in a little bit later. Then think about double dipping on your ingredients. And what do I mean by that? Well, in your planning, supposing you have a Costco near you and you go into Costco and you buy one of our $4.99 chickens. Best deal on chicken in the country. $4.99 for that big chunk of pre-cooked meat. So you can look at that chicken and you can say, okay, I'm going to put that on the table. We're going to have this chicken for dinner. Or you can pull all of the meat off of that chicken and make 3 packages. Then you can use one for chicken enchiladas. You can use another one for chicken salad. And then you could use the third one for chicken noodle soup. And then you could save all of the leavings, the bones, the skin, the gelatinous material that's in the packaging, boil it down, and you could make broth. And so that, again, is the economy of working with food to where you can really stretch your food budget and make it work for you. Then you can also double dip on the use of your equipment. So I'm baking a lasagna. Maybe I bought a pre-frozen lasagna at the grocery store, and I put it in the oven, and it takes 90 minutes before we'll have dinner. 90 minutes at 350 or 375. My oven, and I only have a single oven. I am yearning for a double oven, but I simply don't. So I've worked with this just a single oven for the 13 years we've lived in this house. And will probably for another 13 years too. But my oven is large. I have 2 shelves in that oven. And that lasagna is only going to take up part of 1 rack. But I have 2 racks. So what else can I put in the oven at the same time that will put me ahead of meal planning? Maybe I want to bake a batch of cookies. Well, can you do that at the same time that your lasagna is cooking? Of course you can.
No, you can't.
Yes, you can. Listen.
That's cross-contamination.
I'm sorry, the cameraman is acting out.
Cross-contamination again, huh?
Okay, so then is preserve. And I know you're going to say, huh? What is preserve? For the steps, what is the preserve step? Well, actually, I've talked about it a lot already. And that is that you start preserving parts of your meals. Love your leftovers. Intentionally plan for leftovers. And then build a supply of ingredients. And I did this, and I'll be showing it to you in just a few minutes. We have a chef's supply store that is fairly new in our town that's about 40 miles away. And we visited it a couple of weeks ago, and I bought a great big bucket of mushrooms. And in fact, I have a video on what we did with that. I'll put the little card right up here. So after you have finished with the class, you can come back through and click on that card, and it will take you to the video that will show you what I'm going to talk about right now. So I decided, we haven't had stroganoff for a really long time. So I'm going to make beef stroganoff, which requires mushrooms. But I'm going to buy all of these mushrooms, and I'm going to freeze them. I'm going to prepare them for freezing. And there is a better way than other ways to do frozen mushrooms, and that's what that video is all about. And so now I have in my freezer a whole big supply of frozen mushrooms, and I'll show those to you in a few minutes. That all I have to do next time I need to make anything with mushrooms is go to my freezer and take out the amount that it calls for. They're already pre-cooked, they're sliced. If it calls for them to be diced, I can give them another cut and it's ready. So there again is economy of time and money. I have bought in bulk, I've prepared, so that then the next time I don't have to do the prep work again for that.
Less stress too.
And this, oh, you're right. So that does help us to avoid stress. But you can do that with a lot of individual ingredients. Do it with chopped onions. Have a bunch of frozen chopped onions in your freezer. Buy a big bag of onions. And so those are the types of things. So build up a supply of ingredients and preserve them in your freezer. Or complete meals. The other day we had a great big family dinner and I fixed pot roast. Well, I intentionally doubled the batch of pot roast. And as I will show you in a few minutes, there was enough left afterward that I was able to freeze 3 meals for Jim and me in a gallon bag. I put the meat, potatoes, gravy, carrots, onions in the bag, laid it flat in the freezer so it would freeze like a slab. And then I have 3 of those out in the freezer now. So next time I want to have pot roast, I don't have to do any prep except pull it out of the freezer, thaw it, and warm it up. And so we can start doing things as we go rather than spending all day on Saturday doing all this advanced cooking that some people say is the best way to meal plan. And it may be. Maybe you love to do that. If so, do it that way. For me, I do it as we go. Okay, now we're going to change up just a little bit. On your handout that's titled Meal Planning, we're done with that for now. So just set it aside. We'll come back to the bottom half in a little bit and turn to this page, which is menu for a 3-day trailer trip. Now we're going to see how we implement the steps. So on this sheet, that is menu for 3-day trailer trip, we're just going to be talking about things above the blue line. So just take a minute and look at this. Once you understand the process of planning and are paying attention to the principles, you can plan for any situation for meals that your family might be in. You want to go camping? You know how to do it. For us, we take our trailer a lot. Well, in my trailer, I have to know what my equipment is. I have a refrigerator, I have a little freezer, I have an oven that also is a microwave, and I also have a 3-burner stove. So that's basically my equipment. And so I have to plan according to my equipment. Also, there are times when I just don't want to do a whole lot of cooking from scratch when we're out in our trailer. We want to spend the time on the road riding our little side-by-side and having a great time without a whole lot of meal prep. So I plan accordingly. And this is an actual menu that we are going to take in our trailer in just a few days. Now, by the time this video airs, we will already be back from that trip. So I can talk about this as being something that is going to be in the immediate future. We don't like to advertise when we're out of town. So notice that this is a 3-day plan. That's all I needed to plan for. That's all we're going to be out in our trailer. So Monday morning, we're going to have breakfast at home, yogurt and granola. I didn't move anything over to the to-take column. Notice that this is not labeled as ingredients, but rather because it's a special circumstance, these are the things that I need to take to be sure that I have everything ready for the meal. For all 3 meals of that day. So lunch is going to be at camp, cottage cheese, ham and cheese roll-ups. Then for supper at camp, pot roast and fruit salad. All right, so in the to take column, I have listed everything there that I need to have to support having those 3 meals. So I need to take cottage cheese, deli ham, cheese, pot roast. Okay, I want to show you what that pot roast looks like. Notice I'm not saying for the ingredients for the pot roast, meat, potatoes, carrots, gravy, all of that, because in my freezer, left over from family dinner, I have a frozen pot roast that is exactly enough for Jim and I to have a meal. So it has the meat. Here's the meat. You can see the meat. It has the potatoes and gravy, the carrots, the onions. So everything is here. This takes less than an hour to thaw. We've already had one of the 3 that I made. But this will go in our trailer freezer, which is small. It's just about like this, about the size of a microwave, but it's enough to hold everything that I need for this trip. And so this is what I'm talking about when I talk about preserve. Also, it is a very economical, and it has helped me avoiding stress in planning for this trail trip. Then for Tuesday, breakfast, mini ham and cheese quiche, toast, lunch is pinwheel sandwiches with chips and veggie strips. Supper is Mexican stuffed pasta shells, cottage cheese, and pears. Then you see the list of things that I'm going to take. So I'm not going to be making the quiche because look what I've done. And I didn't do these things just for this video. This is part of my daily routine. Whenever I make something, and it's quite easy now because there's just 2 of us. When we were a family of 8, it was a little bit more difficult. I could make a double batch of lasagna and stick one in the freezer, but it would be in a big pan instead of in a little bag like that pot roast. Here is my breakfast bin that goes in the freezer. It is full of servings of different breakfast things. I have a sheep herder breakfast. I have a slider. I have a couple of ham mini quiches. So here is what I will be taking for breakfast for one day for Jim and me. These four little mini quiches, and they are so good. So I'll just take one of these out of my big freezer and get it in my trailer freezer, and that's all I'll need to do. So this really doesn't go in the indoor freezer. This is part of our new freezer organization that we're going to do a video on freezer organization, and I'll be showing everybody this too. So that is just one thing. All right, then with the pinwheel sandwiches for lunch that day, notice that I'm going to make them ahead of time. I don't want to make them in my trailer. I have all this stuff right here. I would have to take so much stuff, and we'll look at that in just a moment, because that's what is below the blue line, but we're not going to go there yet. And so then I've got stuffed shells. Those stuffed shells, I did a video on our other channel, which is Trail Grazers, because I called it Food for the Trail, and that is exactly what it is. I made these little Mexican stuffed shells. And all I will need to do, and I froze everything that was left over after we've had one meal. And they're in this bag. So I will take out of this bag, I freeze things individually so they're not stuck together. And so I'll just pull out only the amount of shells that we will need for one of our dinners when we're in the trailer. How easy is this? Thaw and heat in our trailer microwave. Then for Wednesday, instant oatmeal cups. So I just did a recent video on how to make do-it-yourself instant oatmeal cups. In fact, I'll put the card right up here in case you want to check out that video if you have not seen it yet. I would show them to you, except we ate the last 2 this morning for breakfast. They have been so handy. So I have to make a new batch. It makes up 9. And so I'll have plenty for when we're ready to go to take them in the freezer. Another thing that, as Jim says, is pay it forward, which is the economy and also to preserve. And then for lunch, quesadillas, and then for supper at home is beef stroganoff with sliced potatoes. Now, you can take a look at the list of things in the middle column right here, things that I have to take. Notice how most of those are already things that I have on hand. My shopping list, which is right here, is very short compared to all of this. So when you are enacting your meal planning and you are especially paying attention to this preserve piece and doing things ahead of time, then you will have this kind of an outcome where you can plan for some meals and, oh my, I already have that in my freezer. I have that ingredient ready to go. And so that's the beautiful part of making sure that you just do things ahead of time. This allows you, when you do it like this, or like I did with the mushrooms, to buy in bulk. Things are cheaper, and then get them all ready right when I'm doing the recipe. I didn't set aside a Saturday to do all of that. I did it when I was prepping for the stroganoff. And so that's what we're going to look at right now. When we get home on Wednesday afternoon, we're going to be exhausted. We'll have a whole trailer that we have to unload and clean out. I will not want to do any cooking, but I've planned the meal. The meal is, if you look on the menu plan, beef stroganoff with corn and sliced tomatoes. So let's take a look at how I might organize that. So here's what I might do. If in my freezer I have a stroganoff meal ready to go, and this is just the meat, the onions, the mushrooms, and the gravy, then what I would do is just say stroganoff right here. Parentheses, freezer. And that would tell me that I have this all done. And then what else would I need to move over? On egg noodles. Ooh, I need egg noodles. And then I need corn. So in my freezer, and we've done a video on this as well, I buy in bulk large packages of frozen vegetables, repackage them in serving sizes for Jim and me, and I have a little vegetable bin, actually I have 6 of them, that's just like the breakfast bin that I showed you a few minutes ago, that has individual meal-sized servings for a lot of different vegetables ready to go. So this would be corn, freezer, and then the tomatoes. So then for shopping, I certainly don't need anything for the stroganoff. Egg noodles we have on hand. I have a whole bin of those wide egg noodles that we would need. The corn already in the freezer. The tomatoes are still, the last of our tomatoes are in the greenhouse. I don't need anything for shopping. So for this meal that I'm going to have in this kitchen after we get home from our trailer trip, I don't have to do any shopping. I just have to go out to the freezer, pull those things, cook the egg noodles, cook the corn, and I'm done. What if, on the other hand, I don't have a pre-made package of stroganoff ready to go? How would I plan for that? Well, I would pull out my recipe, which is right here, and I would write the ingredients. I would need steak strips. I would need oil. I would need onion. I would need mushrooms. Then I would need some flour. And I need some broth. And I need some Dijon mustard. And I need some sour cream. This is just for making the stroganoff. Then I would still need to add egg noodles. Corn, and that one is in my freezer. and tomatoes. So now the planning part is done. Now I need to figure out what my shopping list would be if I were going to make this. So steak strips. Oh, look. I have pre-frozen steak strips. When I was originally planning a couple of weeks ago to make stroganoff after I haven't made it for quite a while, and because we were in the restaurant supply store, I bought like 10 pounds of flank steak, brought it home, cut it in strips, and I have a couple of bags just like this. So I froze them individually. I can just reach in and take out the amount called for in the recipe, and I am good to go. So that does not go over. I have oil, onion. Now, the way I like onion, I have plenty of dried onion and frozen onion, but I don't want it diced. I want to cut it in slices and then use the slices so I have the longer strips. So I need a fresh onion. Do I have a fresh onion? So I go and check my supplies because I can't remember for sure. And oh yes, I have a nice big white onion. I don't need one. Mushrooms. Ooh, look what I have. These are frozen mushrooms that I prepared myself. They are pre-cooked. I would only need like about this much for the recipe. The rest would be back in the bag and back in the freezer. Flour, and frankly, I usually do not add things to my ingredients like oil or flour or salt and pepper, that kind of thing that I know that I have on hand. Just the big ingredients that I have to think about. So then comes broth. All right, so what about broth? Well, last time I made stroganoff, I opened up a quart of broth and it only calls for 2 cups. So what did I do with the other 2 cups? You got it. It's right here, frozen. How convenient is that? So I don't need that. Dijon mustard I have in my refrigerator. Sour cream. I don't have any sour cream. So sour cream would go over here. Egg noodles I have, corn in the freezer, tomatoes in the greenhouse. So my shopping list, if I were doing things from scratch, would only be sour cream. And that is how you plan for meals. Now, let me get these back in the freezer. So let's look back at this menu sheet below the blue line and notice that I have, this is just an example, the menu item is pinwheel sandwiches, and that's back up here for Tuesday's lunch. Now, if I were to not make them ahead of time, you would see all of the ingredients that I would have to take in the trailer and what I would need to buy in the store to be sure that I have everything on hand. And so you can see sometimes it is very economical, down here, economical, to make things ahead of time when you do things like going camping. So that is basically how you do it. Now, in terms of whether you set up something like this, I don't do this on my computer, frankly. I do it on a piece of paper. I seem to think better when I have a piece of paper in front of me and I'm writing things down that way. It's easy to transfer to a computer, which I did for this class, but I don't usually do this on a computer. I do it on a sheet of paper. I'm analog that way, not digital. This is one way to implement what we have talked about in terms of the steps. Now, you can do it on your computer, you can do it in your day planner, you can do it on a sheet of paper, you can do it on the back of an envelope. They have plenty of apps now that you can use your phone for. I don't do that because I like to see it all organized like this, unless there's an app that would do that, but then it would be lost in my phone, and this way I can just pull out a sheet of paper and I have the whole thing that I can look at. Experiment yourself with, try different ways of doing it so that you can land on the way that feels best and most comfortable for you. Now, here is your little assignment. Pause the video And on the bottom half of the first sheet is a practice exercise. So think about a day, pick a day when your whole family is home, and plan one breakfast, one lunch, one dinner. And you can mimic what I have done, or you can do it in your own way. List the ingredients that you will need for each of those meals and what your shopping list is, and then come down here so that you can know what color is what. Fruits are red, grains are orange, vegetables are green, protein is purple. And then just list what it is that you have. Now we're going to do a sample of that right now. Then I'm going to have you do this, and then we will come back. So let's go back to here for just a minute. All right, so just for the fun of it, let's see how balanced this dinner is. So if I were going to plot out this dinner right here on this circle, then what I would do is go through and say, okay, on the right are the grains. So what do I have for grains? Oh, the noodles. So that's in the orange section. I don't have purple, so we'll have to punt. Okay, so then what do we have in the protein? I'll use black for the purple. Protein, okay, I've got the steak. For the fruits, and fruits are red. Tomatoes are actually a fruit. We think of them as vegetables, but they're a fruit. So there's tomatoes. And then for the vegetables, what does this meal have for vegetables? Okay, so it has onions, and it has mushrooms.
And corn.
And corn. So have I gotten everything? Oh, and then for dairy, which is blue, for the dairy, I have sour cream. So I've done the plate diagram for this meal. Now, I have a balanced meal right there, but is it balanced in the percentages? I don't know, but it's balanced. And so I imagine if we were to go through and do the plate diagram for all of these meals, there would be some holes. And you know what? That's okay. Because overall in a day or overall in a week, we will probably come out with pretty much balanced meals if we are mindful of that plate diagram and can think about it and employ it whenever we can. In terms of this diagram, you do not need to worry about doing this diagram with every single meal that you do. After you have done it a few times, you'll get the hang of it, and therefore you will have it in the back of your mind when you do your planning. So don't worry about it and don't let that add to your stress. Every once in a while you can check yourself and do it, but it is not something that you need to do with every single meal. So pause the video, do your little homework assignment, and then come back. I hope you enjoyed doing your little exercise. So you can give yourself 50 points if you actually did the exercise. Give yourself another 25 points if you had balance on all of your meals. All three of your meals were at least balanced in some way. And then give yourself another 25 points if you are going to actually do meal planning. If you already do it, if you're going to employ some of the things that we learned today, if you are not yet doing it, that you are actually going to employ what we've learned with the principles and the steps in some way, even if you start very small, which is now 100%. So you are all wonderful, wonderful students. Thank you so much for being a part of this class. And I hope the takeaway for you was that you don't feel stressed about doing this because you can do it in your own way by applying the principles and the steps in ways that are comfortable for you. Start with a bite that you can actually chew and digest. Don't try to jump across a ravine and get yourself all messed up because you're trying to do too much at first. Start small, work into it, and then step by step, start building up your supply. Focus on what you can, and little by little, pretty soon, it's going to become a very seamless process for you. So happy menu planning. I hope you enjoy this class, and please let us know some of the things that you learned that you're going to employ, and some of the things that you already do that I didn't cover. One of the great things about our community is that we learn from each other, and there are such good ideas presented in the comments. So put your good ideas down and be a part of the community. So we will see you very soon for another class.